Suddenly, he was looking down at Hinata. Uh-oh. Of course, I always wanted to feel Hinata inside me. Oh my goodness.
Hinata looked and found himself wanting to contort into positions that just didn't quite work with the rigidity of theater seating to get himself there as well. Before he knew it, he hiked up one leg on the back of the seat in front of him, angling his body more towards Komeda. Dang. Come on, more. God dang, he whispered. Apparently close enough that he could enjoy a few moments where he didn't really care what came out of his mouth or how hard he was squeezing Komeda's fist around his wiener or how fast he was jerking the other boy's wrist. His other hand decided that burying itself into Komeda's hair was a better use of its time and yanked his head up into something that wasn't so much as a kiss as it was Hinata groaning into Komeda's mouth and biting at his lower lip until he felt the first spasm of orgasm coursing through his spine.
Komeda started when he realized it was happening, as he was afraid he was going to miss something, and his attention fell on their hands together. The other boy managed the strength to steal their movement, slowly twisting his grip as it settled low against Hinata's hip so he could dip his head down and gently lap at his head. Just few quick flicks of his tongue and Hinata was done, hips jerking hard enough that it splashed across Komehada's face. A perfect slash dripping from his cheeks down to his throat.
Hinata started to apologize, but Komeda was definitely the one responsible for the state he put himself in and probably didn't want to hear it. Hinata melted back into his seat, head tipped back so he could try to settle his breathing. After a few moments, he silently pulled a napkin from beside the box of candy and turned back to wipe the mess from a dazed Komeda's cheek. He leaned into Hinata's touch, nuzzling against the now dirty napkin. Hinata swallowed a lump in his throat and allowed himself to glance into Komeda's eyes, clouded with need, and traced the napkin down over his lips and throat and cleaning, feeling like a secondary concern. He barely finished when Komeda pushed past his hand and kissed him again, the mood once again overtaking his usual pretense and hesitation and pulling him into Hinata's lap. Thighs spread and knees digging into the seat of either side of Hinata's legs. Hinata didn't want to look away from the hungry boy currently grinding his hips, but he did briefly allow his focus to fall over Komeda's shoulder just to see what on screen Hinata's next move was going to be. The camera lingered on a long shot centered on the bed. Hinata lay motionless, with one arm thrown over his eyes, lips parted, breathing even. And was he sleeping? The scene started to fade out as on screen Komeda scooted away from him to give him space, watching him fondly before closing his eyes as well. He felt Komeda lean in to start sucking on his throat. Oh, no. Hinata only thought he was ashamed earlier. That was nothing. Oh no, did I seriously not? It didn't look like it was edited. Hinata had been laying in the same position as he collapsed. Wow. Komeda pulled away to look at him, deep concern falling over his flushed features.
Hinata-kun.
That night, did I really just fall asleep after that? I didn't do anything else.
Komehada at least deserved Hinata's attempt at
Reciprocation.
There we go. Reciprocation of whatever all this was. Komehada glanced over his shoulder, noticing the scene had moved on, returning to extremely poor edited footage. He took a moment to process what Hinata was going on about. He gasped when it settled on him, whipping his attention back to Hinata. You were extremely tired that day. You mentioned it several times that evening, but I still insisted on coming to your room. He put his arms around Hinata's neck, voice ghostly across his ear. I hope you can forgive me.
What? Hinata couldn't even bring himself to acknowledge an apology that he definitely did not deserve. Oh my god, I'm an asshole, I guess.
Hinata-kun.
Hinata grabbed Komeda's hips and jerked him forward, disrupting his balance enough that he had to grab the seat back. Tell me what you want me to do.
Hinata-kun. Maybe that was a dangerous way of phrasing it.
Tell me what you want me to do to make you feel good. He repeated carefully, and more importantly, specifically. He knew Komeda's aversion to being direct about wanting anything, but he really, really wanted to hear him say it.
As always, you don't owe me.
I want you to tell me. Hinata's throat immediately went dry even as he said it. He waited, not sure what he was expecting or what he hoped for.
Komeda's expression changed minutely. His posture straightened just a bit. Suddenly, he was looking down at Hinata. Of course, I always wanted to feel Hinata inside me. Oh my goodness. His nervous hesitation was gone, replaced by a matter-of-fact tone, as if Hinata should have come to this conclusion himself long ago. Then he crumbled, posture dissolving as he covered his face with his hands, elbows bumping against Hinata's forehead as he did. Not that it matters what I want, but it would probably feel good for you too if you forget for a moment how repulsive I am.
Oh gosh.
He laughed weakly. Though you've been pretty good at forgetting that recently, which is both admirable and kind. He licked his lips, and Hinata noticed that he missed the spot earlier. Fuck.
Hinata swallowed audibly. Well, we should probably... Komeda grabbed his hand and pulled it up to his lips, tongue flicking out against Hinata's fingertips.
Of course, I would never actually ask for something so intimate, particularly in a place like this. He shivered as his posture shifted again, unable to maintain airs he was putting on. But there are other places of Hinata-kun that I've thought about being inside me.
Hmm?
If you still want to touch me at all, that is, after hearing me say all these disgusting things.
Oh. Hinata wasn't sure which of them was responsible for two of his fingers sliding inside Komeda's mouth at that moment, pushing and all the way letting him feel the low vibration of sound at the back of his throat while Komeda shrugged his jacket down to his elbows. The next thing he knew, Komeda's belt buckle was clinging against the armrest and being draped over the back of his seat, followed shortly by his parka. He was still balancing on Hinata's chair and seemed averse to putting his feet back on the sticky floor, so Hinata helped him pull his jeans down just enough in kneeling position. As Hinata carefully started peeling his gray boxers down his hips, Komeda suddenly leaned against him, pressing Hinata's face against his stomach and obscuring the view. Komeda. Hinata turned his head enough to ask, and felt Komeda wrapping his arms around his head. Gosh dang. He couldn't see shit from this position, except the blur of pale and white of his t-shirt, face first into the scent of his skin and the detergent that lingered, and the fine cotton of what they may have been a deceptively expensive piece of clothing. You over there shaking your
Komeda
head?
had bared his face on top of Hinata's head and groaned in a tone that Hinata recognized so clearly that he had to stifle a laugh. Komeda didn't get embarrassed exactly, as he seemed to be a creature that was beyond shame in a way that frequently left Hinata speechless, but maybe the abruptness of requesting something he probably deemed one-sided and selfish had settled on him.
It's fine. Hinata mumbled into his t-shirt. I don't really mind. Hinata didn't exactly feel like he was equipped to make this an incredible experience, but even if he wasn't technically prepared, there was a chance that his frequent and intense mental conjuring of this exact scenario might help. And since Komeda had asked, it wasn't really his fault if it was bad anyway. Jeez. He kept repeating the sentiment in his head over and over, looking at his already wet fingers again for good measure before reaching behind Komaeda, palm settling on his ass.
Komaeda hips were bony, but they were enough for Hinata to squeeze, making Komaeda jerk, sharp ribs jutting against Hinata's cheeks.
Hinata's fingers pressed against Komaeda while his other hand held him in place, but as soon as he made contact, he froze. He couldn't possibly just go for it, right? Didn't he need to?
You don't have to actually do it, Hinata-kun. Komaeda said, muffled against his hair as some of his tension released. He even started to pull away, but Hinata held him in place.
That's not it. I'm just not sure if you're ready.
Komaeda laughed, shaking both of them. I'm always ready, of course.
Dang, okay. Booty just open.
His voice cracked a little, not uncommon for Komaeda, but seemed telling in context. Anything you want me to do, I've been ready. His arms around Hinata's head squeezed hard enough that it hurt for a moment. So please.
Hinata didn't feel all that reassured. Do you mean like emotionally? Because that's not exactly what I was talking about.
Oh, and I touched myself like this earlier this morning.
Oh.
Don't worry, it was after I left your cottage. In my own room.
That wasn't exactly what Hinata had been worried about. So does that mean you already lube?
Don't be ridiculous, Hinata-kun.
Hinata was not being ridiculous.
Komaeda leaned into Hinata again, and the conversation seemed to be done. It wasn't news to Hinata that Komaeda touched himself there like this. He'd even been present for a couple of occasions, but knowing that he was about to feel it firsthand sent a shiver down his spine. He managed to tune out the stupid movie playing behind him, trying to forget that the characters on screen had such an incredible view of Komaeda right now. Once again, he's slightly jealous of on-screen Hinata. And they were very likely being filmed from infinite angles at this exact moment. His saliva slick middle fingers started to slowly massage the sensitive entrance, mimicking the circular motion that he had seen Komaeda use on himself, though Hinata went slower, less for Komaeda's sake as for his own need to try and absorb the experience.
He felt Komaeda stiffen against him, long fingers anchoring in his hair. Hinata took a deep breath and exhaled against Komaeda's chest, making him shiver, and took that moment of slight distraction to slip the tip of his finger into him. He's seen how rough Komaeda was with himself, but feeling how tight he was around Hinata's finger made him wonder how that could possibly be anything other than painful. Hinata didn't wonder what exactly it felt like, but Komaeda moaning against him made a very compelling case for it. Hinata slid his finger in and out and went back to teasing until Komaeda's hips rocked against him. Hinata held him tighter and pushed his finger in again, all the way to the knuckle before he stopped. He could feel Komaeda's pulse, and it momentarily took his breath away. Without a frame of reference, it was hard to gauge how much it helped, but Hinata was still grateful for Komaeda's morning habits and tried not to think about how often the other boy had potentially come prepared for the scenario. Komaeda's cool hand slipped behind Hinata's collar, and he lightly raked his nails over bare skin. It didn't hurt exactly, but the sudden sensation spurred Hinata along, pushing his finger in as deep as it could go. His fingertip dragged against the sensitive skin with enough friction to earn him another little moan. He liked feeling Komaeda tremble from the inside and began a slow, rhythmic stroking motion while Komaeda's nails continued to glide up and down the back of his neck. Pressed so tight against him, Hinata could feel him getting hard.
Hinata-kun, Komaeda's voice hitched.
Sorry. Hinata turned his head so he could speak. It's probably not as good as when you do it to yourself, right? He laughed a little at his own callback.
Oh no, I didn't expect it to be anything like when I do it to myself.
Hinata cast his eyes to the high ceiling, knowing he shouldn't have asked if he didn't want an answer.
It's much more intense since it's you. He practically whispered into Hinata's hair. Intense.
Hinata flushed against his shirt, suddenly hit with the need to make sure Komaeda meant it. Why you over there shaking your head still? He slipped his finger out most of the way so he could position the second one. Oh, pushed them both in with more force. Komaeda tightened up,
Arching his back when Hinata's fingers curled inside him.
Hinata slid Komaeda's t-shirt up higher so he could nip at his chest intermediately, while Komaeda draked an arch and clawed his way through, hoping the added stimulation would make up for whatever he definitely lacked in experience. Every time Komaeda's hips rocked up against him, he could feel the hard warmth against his chest and the dampness of pre-cum starting to leak through his shirt. God. Okay. He was probably doing something right. Hinata tried splitting his fingers as he pulled them out, testing the taut skin, wondering if Komaeda could take more, if he should be doing more. He thrust them back in, twisting his wrists as he slid completely in and then out again, over and over, soft, slick sounds reaching his ears, even over the chatter happening on screen.
Komaeda suddenly sobbed into his hair, grabbing a fistful of Hinata's shirt.
Hey.
Hinata-kun, here! His voice broke. Komaeda pulled away from him just enough to slide his arms between the two of them, slipping his own hand down between his legs. Without hesitation, he pushed his own middle finger, wedging tightly into himself along Hinata's fingers.
Okay.
Hinata felt Komaeda was guiding him and pushing him into deeper, forcing his knuckles to bend and pressing his fingertips down hard. Komaeda convulsed once at the feeling, gasping and digging his nail to Hinata's shoulder, managing to sound surprised even as he controlled their movements. The audacity, Hinata thought, curling his fingers against that spot again. He could feel his shirt getting wetter and warmer as Komaeda trembled, breathing becoming harsh and ragged, whatever. Komaeda's fingers started thrusting into himself at a different rhythm than Hinata as they took turns rubbing against his sensitive nerves, leaving him stimulated constantly. Hinata felt him tighten up, his own thrust becoming faster, inspiring Hinata to follow along. Komaeda muffled his cry into Hinata's hair when he finally came, splashing across Hinata's shirt and tie and sinking against him, panting and indistinctly relaxed enough that Hinata's fingers slipped out easily.
Dang, just from booty stuff?
Hinata's hands hovered uncertainly mid-air until Komaeda sat up enough to ease his underwear back into place, snapping the waistband against his hip and yanking his jeans up before shakily winding back into his own chair. I ruined your shirt and tie. Komaeda whispered, voice heavy with that familiar combination of just came and deep self-loathing.
Hinata blinked slowly down at his shirt. Oh. He reached for his stash of napkins again, dabbing the thin, waxy tissues over the worst of it, but definitely leaving some evidence behind. I'm sure I can clean it. He handed Komaeda some napkins as well, and the other boy politely patted himself clean. It took Hinata a few moments to realize that the credits were rolling. An extremely quick scroll of the names of everyone on the island went by, and then a long, drawn-out scroll as Monokuma's name went by many times. He credited himself for things like lighting, catering, best boy group, a title which Hinata was skeptical of. Well, I guess we missed the mystery reveal. Hinata tossed his dirty napkin on the floor. Dang. Pinching his own dirty napkin between his fingers, Komaeda hesitated, looking around briefly for another solution before giving up and also delicately placing it on the floor.
I suppose so, but don't let this fiction trouble you. The reality is that you do have your underwear. I've seen it and would testify as to its location if asked.
Hinata laughed as the lights came up. I don't feel like that was a feature leaf, but that's probably for the best.
It was free, Hinata-kun.
Hinata shrugged. At least it wasn't Wizard of Monami. As they stood up, Komaeda turned to him, but was unable to meet his eyes, instead fixated on the unfortunate stain.
It's okay.
It's not okay.
It's not okay to go outside like that, is it? Do you want to wear my jacket?
I'm not actually sure that's less suspicious. Hinata was also mildly concerned that the sleeves might be long on him. Here, I have an idea. Hinata turned to the untouched hot dog, still balancing on the armrest, and stuck his finger into the messy drizzle of ketchup. Oh, okay. Komaeda watched in horror, frozen in places. Hinata traced over the stains with ketchup.
Hinata-kun? He hissed, semi-hysterical, hands trembling at his sides. What have you done?
That's a normal stain to get at the movies. I'm sure there's bleach at Rocket Punch. It's fine. They made their way down the aisle. I hope no one thinks I got hurt because of ketchup. Hinata laughed.
That looks nothing like a blood stain at all. I'm sure it's fine.
They pushed open the heavy double doors. Oh. Ugh. Hinata jumped, hating that Monokuma got the drop on him when he should have probably been expecting this. Mm-hmm.
Did you have fun solving the mystery?
I was hoping you would pick this one. What? Really? Oh my gosh. Hinata felt himself go pale. The fuck did that mean? Haven't you noticed all this time I've been trying to get you all saying the certain phrases on camera? What the heck? It was all for the sake of completing my masterpiece. That is awful. All of this has been to land myself a spot in filmmaking history. Huh? Well, that's a lie. This wasn't planned out that carefully. How was I supposed to know you would come back to this old location seeking entertainment when there's an entire new island to explore that is the very picture of entertainment itself?
It was certainly mysterious in a lot of invasive and terrifying ways.
Anyway, I couldn't possibly have edited this all myself, so I programmed a bot to help me. There are bots for everything these days. Aren't you just a bot yourself? Did someone program you? This is just a side story, so I really don't think anyone appreciates your lame speculations. Why don't you keep it to yourself and learn to appreciate all the work that goes into innovative storytelling? Of course I'm a program bot. There were, 15 of you? 16. Right, how can I be expected to make a unique movie for every person who comes in here by myself? That was just a customized video experience using facial recognition. Ooh, and I'm getting shivers just thinking about how far-fetching technology has come. Customized? You don't think other customers want to watch some videos starring just you? Imagine being that self-centered. Komaeda shrugged at Monokuma and shook his head. Don't side with him. So are you ready to tell me the answer to the mystery? If you were paying attention to the clues, I'm sure you figured it out. You wanna figure this out? And I looked at Komaeda nervously, hoping
I'm a lucky student, bro.
he'd be helpful as he usually tended to be in the pinch. Give it.
I read it.
Wonderful. That sounds like a brilliant twist, though maybe a bit obvious since the title of the film was Hinata Hajime Underwear Point Import. What the F? I said point. I meant dot. Okay.
Dumbass.
Well, that's probably because it was my underwear that was missing in the first place, so. Wow, I really don't care. I already know the plot twist now. There's no reason to watch it or discuss it further. And it's taking up valuable hard drive space. Ugh, whatever, let's get out of here. Hinata grabbed Komaeda's hand, surprising both of them, and pulled him out of the theater.
Wait, weren't we going to get a prize?
Hinata had been in such a hurry, he left without thinking about the stupid prize. We can't really go back and tell Monokuma we want his prize.
You're right. I guess we can go back and see another movie sometime.
What? See another one?
No, fuck that. Let's go back. We can just.
Oh, okay. Let's just go back to the title screen. Okay, that was kind of cool. So you can get different. Oh, I saw you can get different endings and stuff. So, okay, that's all we're going to do for today because I'm pretty sure you're tired of reading now, aren't you? I think you are. I'll probably just play the rest of them by myself. But, yeah. That's it.
No. I should have picked action. I should have picked action. Do not pick mystery. Do not pick mystery.
Oh my gosh.